the night the zoo woke up. In the heart of Chicago, the Lincoln Park Zoo was a sanctuary of tranquility, a place where families gathered to marvel at the majesty of wildlife. With its diverse animal inhabitants and scenic landscapes, it had long been a cherished escape from the bustling city streets. But one fateful evening, the zoo would become the epicenter of an unimaginable catastrophe. The crash. It started with a screech of tires and the deafening impact of metal against concrete. A tanker truck, carrying industrial chemicals bound for a research facility, lost control on Lake Shore Drive. The driver had swerved to avoid a reckless motorcyclist, but in doing so, the truck jackknifed, smashing through the barriers near the zoo's perimeter. The impact ruptured the massive container, spilling a glowing, viscous substance across the ground. At first, it seemed like just another accident, an environmental hazard, but nothing life-threatening. Emergency crews arrived swiftly, cordoning off the area. The fire department assessed the chemical spill, and hazmat teams prepared containment measures. However, no one had anticipated the true horror about to unfold. The chemicals seeped into the soil, spreading through drainage systems, and infiltrating the zoo's underground water supply. Within hours, the first signs of change appeared. The awakening. It began in the primate house. A low, guttural growl echoed through the darkness, a sound uncharacteristic of the usually playful chimpanzees. Their movements became erratic, their eyes dilated, their muscles twitching unnaturally. Then came the big cats. The lions, normally lounging in their enclosures, began pacing aggressively, their tails whipping back and forth. The male let out a deafening roar, one that sent a ripple of unease through the zoo staff working the night shift. The zookeepers noticed something was wrong but couldn't explain it. The animals seemed agitated, their aggression unlike anything they had ever seen. The situation escalated when a bear, one of the zoo's grizzlies, charged the reinforced glass of its enclosure, shattering it with a force no one believed possible. Panic erupted as alarms blared throughout the zoo. Employees rushed to secure the remaining enclosures, but it was already too late. The chemicals had done something unnatural. The animals weren't just aggressive, they were stronger. Escape into the city. The perimeter fences, designed to withstand natural force, were no match for chemically enhanced fury. The gorillas ripped through their enclosure, the wolves clawed through their barriers, and the jaguars leaped impossible distances, clearing walls that should have kept them contained. By the time emergency responders realized what was happening, the zoo had become a war zone. A massive silverback gorilla smashed through a gate and sprinted onto the streets of Chicago. A pack of wolves, their eyes glowing with an eerie luminescence, stalked through the shadows of Lincoln Park. And then came the lions, 3 of them, charging through the streets, their roars shaking the city to its core. The police department received frantic calls. Reports of massive creatures rampaging through the streets flooded 911 operators. One officer, patrolling near the park, barely had time to react before a panther lunged onto the hood of his car, denting the metal with a single impact. Helicopters took to the sky as news stations broadcasted live footage of the chaos. Civilians ran for cover, some taking shelter in buildings, others fleeing down alleyways as stampeding animals tore through the streets. Survival and strategy. Mayor Thomas Radcliffe called for an immediate state of emergency. The National Guard was mobilized, and police SWAT teams armed themselves with tranquilizers and live ammunition. The challenge was containment. These weren't normal animals anymore. Daniel Mercer, the zoo's senior veterinarian, was brought in to advise the emergency response teams. They're under the influence of something unnatural, he explained. They're stronger, faster, and their instincts are unpredictable. Tranquilizers might not work as quickly as we need them to. The plan was simple yet dangerous. Lure the animals back to the zoo. Helicopters hovered low, using loudspeakers to play recordings of feeding calls, hoping to trigger primal instincts. Specialized teams armed with high-powered tranquilizers moved strategically, aiming to subdue the most dangerous creatures first. Downtown Chicago became a battlefield. The silverback gorilla tore through cars, flipping them as if they were toys, until a precise dart finally brought it down. The lions engaged in a terrifying standoff with SWAT teams near Millennium Park, their glowing eyes burning through the foggy night, until one by one, they collapsed under the effects of tranquilizers. The wolves proved the most elusive. Moving like shadows, they evaded capture, striking from the darkness. It took coordinated efforts from snipers positioned on rooftops to finally neutralize them. As dawn approached, the last of the escaped animals were either sedated or captured. The city, battered and shaken, began to process the surreal nightmare it had endured. The aftermath. Investigators determined that the industrial chemicals contained experimental compounds meant for biochemical research. Though the specifics remained classified, scientists suggested that prolonged exposure had altered the animals' neurological and muscular structures, making them hyper-aggressive and significantly stronger. The government quickly took control of the situation, confiscating the remaining chemicals and sealing all reports. Lincoln Park Zoo, once a place of wonder, became a restricted zone for weeks as specialists analyzed the long-term effects. Though the city had survived, the scars remained. Witnesses spoke of glowing-eyed beasts and unnatural strength, of creatures that defied explanation. Some believed the animals had been mutated beyond repair and were secretly relocated to undisclosed facilities. Others whispered theories of a cover-up, that some of the creatures had never been found. And then, there were those who claimed, late at night, if you listened closely near the zoo's gates, you could still hear the low, guttural growl of something that should not exist. The night the zoo woke up was over, but the fear and the mystery remained.